Hey YouTube, it's your girl Dr. J, and I thought I'd come back and do another quick video to talk to you guys about something that we're doing for the history of science. And we are using this book by Joy Hawken, and it is called The Story of Science, and it's actually a three-part series. So you have all three books, and it is Aristotle. The first one is Aristotle Leads the Way. Joy Hawken is known a lot for her books on human history, well, American history, and they're phenomenal. A lot of homeschoolers use them. We just got them. We're going to be using them for our American history. But I had not really heard anybody talk about her history of science book, and they're really good. She did it in conjunction with the Smithsonian, and I mean, the book is phenomenal, just like all of her work. Really good, really balanced, brings in a lot of good narrative, so it's not just dry data that's coming forward. But to supplement that, Johns Hopkins University, their talent development program, and that is a program that's designed for gifted children. They also have a teacher's guide that we have to go along with it, as well as a student quest guide. They call it a student quest guide, but yeah, this is their from their talent development program, and it's a great supplement to the book because it's a way for me to not just like read through the book, but we actually use it as a study. And the questions are phenomenal. The way things are addressed in the book is phenomenal. It goes well beyond the kind of the lower levels in Bloom's taxonomy. I know a lot of times when you see history classes and even science courses, some of the questions they ask are basically call and response, or what happened, X, Y, or Z, and it's just filling in factual information. Whereas the quest guides ask students to use the information that they've gained from the book. So one of the first things that they learn about is the development of calendars. And so one of the activities in the book is it asks the students to choose one of four societies. So they learn about various societies' calendar systems. So they choose one of four societies' calendar systems. And the ones that they choose from are the Babylonian, Islamic, Chinese, or Egyptian. And they identify what society they chose, and then they have to develop their own calendar for that society. And they have to say what the calendar is based on. Is it a lunar calendar? Is it a solar calendar? What kind of calendar is it? Then how many number of months, length of months, and the length of a year. And then they talk about what are some of the advantages to their calendar, and then they talk about what are some of the problems with their calendar and how do they solve those problems. And that's good because even with our current calendar, we have problems. That's why we have a built-in leap year in our calendar to solve kind of those problems. And then another assignment that a quest. Actually, these are not assignments. These are quests that students go on. And so the next quest is where it's 300 BCE, and they encounter a island in the Atlantic where people are fishermen. And so they can only go back and forth from their island during high tide that happens twice a day. And so they give the student a data sheet of 31 days of the first and second high tide. They're supposed to graph that on graphing paper, and they answer questions like, what patterns do you see in the two high tides for the 31 days? Fill in the predicted dots or the high tides for the next 5 days. And then if the island fishermen base their days on high tides, what might their calendar look like? And I really like it because it helps the student and the child to not think of the science of history as primitive, but they did great work with the things that they had available to them. And a lot of what we know today is based on work that was done, 2,000 years ago, or even 500 years ago, So it allows us to have a much more respect for the history that people did. So we're using those to go along with that. I have my Fames and Cosmos Milestones in Science kit, and the kit came with a nice booklet, and it gives you the various scientists that you're going to do some projects from their work. And the teacher's manual from Johns Hopkins, it has assignments or experiments to do where you're using the people that you learn about in the books and conducting some of their experiments. This was an additional kit that I got that also allows you to do it, where you see the work of like Kepler and designing things. And so we can use the kit to do some of the experiments that we read about in Joy's book. So that's really good way we're tying that in. And then another thing that we have, just as kind of a reference, is the National Geographic Concise History of Science and Invention. And this is kind of what we're using as, you know, a check of the Joy Harkin book and supplemental information, because Joy Harkin gives kind of that narrative view, whereas the National Geographic book fills in other pieces of our timeline that may not be covered in the Joy Harkin book. And so it's really neat. I think it's going to be a really great study. And that's just what we're doing for the history of science. That is not our only history that we're doing, but since people tend to, you know, there's a lot of videos where you can see what people are doing for history, but this is what we're doing for the science of history. What we're doing for our regular history, I'm not going to do that video, but the way we're doing it is looking at history from a social and environmental justice perspective. So we're having our own kind of different twist on history and looking at it from social justice and kind of a multicultural view of history, as opposed to some of kind of the more other perspectives in history. But this is what we're doing for science. Another thing that we're doing is when we get to some people, or if there's some other people that we want to supplement, I got some of these books. This is Graphic Libraries. This is Elizabeth Blackwell. She was the first woman doctor. And this is Lise Meitner on nuclear fusion. Albert Einstein. This is Who Was Albert Einstein. These Who Was books are really great. We really like these. This is African American Women Chemists. And this is just a book of the so many women chemists that black female chemists I had never heard of before, did not know their work. So it's a nice supplement. And then this is a book we have on Charles Drew, and I've actually been able to find some videos and different things on Charles Drew and some of the other people as well. So I try to have biographies that are easy for the kids to read and stuff, so they can kind of learn a little bit more about the various people. We have a book on Tesla and some other folks here. This is our book on Tesla. And so I try to make sure that we kind of mix things up and get kind of a deeper understanding of some people that are featured. You can't do it with everybody, but with some of the people that are featured in history, and definitely some people that are a little bit different and from a more diverse set, more women, more African Americans, and that sort of stuff, so that they get a fuller view of history, of the history of science and the contributions from lots of different people. So that's what we're doing. I hope this helps. This is Dr. J, and I'm out. Bye-bye.